Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 57 of Own the Road with AutoTrader, where we make car stuff simple for Canadians. My name is Jodi, and I'm the editor-in-chief of AutoTrader.
And I'm Dan Alika. Oh my God.
Did you forget your own title?
Yeah.
Sometimes you forget your own name.
Yeah, that's true. But you have two. My name is Dan. My last name is Alika, and I am AutoTrader's road test editor. Moving on.
But you are currently driving an EV,
Yes.
a really cool one,
Yes.
might I add. Do you want to tell our listeners about it?
Yeah, it's the 2024 Hyundai Ioniq 5N. So those of you who may remember, the Ioniq 5 came out a couple years ago, and it was this really cool kind of like retro-inspired, oversized hatchback with pixelated lights, and it just looks really cool. This is a performance version, and it's just like, it's super cool. Not just because, it makes more power and whatever, but it's like cool leveraging of technologies like using regenerative braking to help with turn-in.
It's also the first mainstream performance EV, isn't it?
I would say the Mustang Mach-E GT Performance
Oh,
Edition.
that's a good point. That's a good point.
That one, though, I will say that one was more, like a Mustang GT, where it's like, mostly the same. Now, don't get me wrong, a Mustang is a muscle car, but it's like mostly the same, just a bigger engine and a few bit whereas the Ioniq 5N, there's more to it. There's a lot more, add-ons and technology that's gone into it. But yeah, it's super cool. But driving it was a good reminder that, EV charging etiquette is still a lost art for many people.
I think because it's still so new, right? Like EVs are still in their early days, and I feel like a lot of people have not had the chance to learn about the etiquette.
You're always looking at the bright side. I just think people are selfish, entitled jerks.
I mean, also that. And so you might have remembered in previous episodes where I would rant about the charging bays at the AutoTrader office in Etobicoke, and how they're always being occupied by Teslas who are parked there but not charging.
Yeah.
And that to me falls into that they don't give a crap camp.
Yes.
Because I also left them a note not too long ago.
But they're still doing it.
And I said, please don't park here unless you're charging. I didn't say anything rude. And what happened yesterday, I went back to the office and they were all still there.
Yeah, that's the thing. That's the funny thing is EV owners tend to look at this topic as, they like to use the term being iced out, which means, an internal combustion engine vehicle, hence ICE, is parking in a spot for an EV charger. Therefore, you can't get in, so you're being iced out. That's the picture that the average EV owner will paint for you. But in reality, other EV owners are just as, if not more guilty of doing this to other EV owners.
I feel like they're worse offenders than ICE drivers.
And it blows my mind because in my head, I'm like, man, you've been through this. Why would you want to continue to do that to other people?
Right?
Some guy yesterday was charging this Ioniq, and this was the same scenario that you've talked about. Sherway Gardens in Etobicoke. There is a Tesla supercharger bank of stations there, and there is one DC fast charger that's in the underground parking kind of on the other side of the mall. And this Tesla owner showed up when I was plugged in and was livid. And I'm like, dude, you have faster chargers just on the other side of the mall. And he was so mad that I was parked there charging.
That is absurd to me.
Like, that's
because
also
Tesla
an etiquette
drivers
thing.
will go on and on about how amazing their Teslas are.
Yes.
Oh, the supercharging network. Nobody can beat it. Then why aren't you using it?
Exactly. And I just, he didn't, it was like his annoyance was visible when he pulled in and was arms up and threw his head back and then reversed and whatever. But it's like, dude, that is an etiquette thing.
100%.
You have that guy that happened to you and it was raining. And it's like, dude, I get it. It's raining, but you're just going to sit in your car anyways.
Yeah. But it's also, so whenever that has happened to me, I'm not even at 80%. Okay, so here's one tip. There's no hard and fast rule about a lot of this stuff. A lot of this stuff is just common courtesy, being polite, thinking of, the convenience of the person after you, right? So typically, if I'm charging an EV, I will not charge it to past 75%.
Wow.
Because it slows down after about 75, 80%, it slows down. And plus, I don't want to be, especially if there's only 1 or 2 chargers available,
Sure.
I want to make sure that the next person doesn't have to wait around too long. If there's like 10 chargers, then yeah, maybe I'll
Yeah.
go up to 100%. But especially if I see
I'm
people waiting, I'll unplug
Oh, if
early.
somebody's waiting, but I'm not like yesterday I charged to 99% because
Yeah,
I can't charge at home.
that's true.
And granted, this Tesla, I was still at 70 some odd, 72 maybe, when he showed up, but still, I'm like, dude, like you know,
Yeah.
I not just that wasn't just like because I do that a lot. There's a Shell station that I use, and I'm very, cognizant of other people that show up. But that one in particular, if it was for a Tesla owner with a whole bank of
Oh, I
superchargers,
wouldn't.
there's no way I'm gonna unplug early
No.
so you can use this when you have an entire bank of faster chargers.
That you don't have access to.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So that is an etiquette thing, but so is, the icing out. We can't get over that as a and I see it happen all the time. And it's very obvious, like, half the time the spots are painted green. They
Mhm.
say EV charging only, whatever. And you just see somebody that goes, well, I want to park here. And especially during the holiday season when everybody's going to the mall
Right, because
shopping.
'cause they're closer to the
Exactly,
entrance.
but it's like, dude, come on. Like, we're not parking there just for the convenience. It's like we need to park there. That would be like just being like, oh, I get upset when somebody's at the gas station, and if you're going in, if you pump gas and then you're also going in to like, do your lottery tickets and all that stuff, then pull up to the front,
Mm.
get out of the way of that pump so the next person can use it. And to me, the same rule applies here. You would expect someone to do that, so don't do that to an EV driver.
Yeah, it's just rude, right? It's like, parking in the expectant mother parking, and you're just like, "A dude,
Yeah.
like, I'm sorry, you shouldn't be parking there."
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's really frustrating for me, especially because we can't charge at home. So when
Yeah.
I pull up to a charger and I see that someone's parked there and not charging,
Oh,
I am livid
yes.
because I'm running out of options at that
Yeah.
point, right?
Yeah.
And what am I gonna do? What if I don't have enough range to make it to the next charger?
Exactly.
It's
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
frustrating. The other thing I've noticed is that I used a charging bank in a mall. I think it was Shops at Don Mills or something like
Okay.
that. And their stalls are set up so that there is a charger for 2 spots, 2 empty spots, and then another 2 chargers or
Okay.
whatever. And you have to position your car in a way that the charger can reach your port in a
Yeah.
in a easy way, so you don't have to, like, yank the cord
Of
and plug
course.
it in the
Yeah,
other
yeah.
way. And so instead of, pulling into this spot and, realizing, "Oh, my charger is in the wrong spot," and, like, reversing your car and parking back, this guy used the next door chargers, um, and put it in his car,
That's
which meant
brutal.
that that person, that open spot, wasn't able to charge
Yeah.
anymore. So
I
he was
just
blocking 2 spots.
I just don't it blows my mind, right? Again, it's like you're not the only person out there. It's like how could you just approach that situation and think that you're literally the only
But the
EV
solution
driver?
was so easy. Just
Yeah.
move your car. It takes
Yeah.
2 seconds,
Yeah.
right? And so I just feel like for EV drivers especially, if you're going to be an advocate for the EV lifestyle, you have to act in a way
Yeah.
that, is conducive to that.
Absolutely. But then the other one that I've talked about a lot because, in that my first thought in that scenario was like, oh, maybe that first charger he tried to plug into was broken. But that's another one. And I've said this to you before. Like, if you see a charger that's broken, call the number, especially if it's one that you use all the time. This is really, I've had conversations with people. Oh, this one's been broken for months. Have you done anything about it?
That's a really good point.
Why would you not want to make it easier for yourself and others? It's not like I'm asking you to get out your toolbox and fix it. Call a phone number.
I think it's because people generally have really bad experience with, like, customer service
Sure.
hotlines.
Yeah.
So I get the reluctance to do that, but
Sure, but it's
how
like
else are they gonna know?
exactly. Remember I told you that one time I called, it was the Shell recharge thing, and, I was at the station, and while I was charging, the station faulted. Okay, I heard it click off, and I was like, "That's weird," and then I went out and looked, and it said on the thing, like, "faulted," and I was like, "Oh boy." Because it was a fault, I couldn't release the charger from my port.
Oh, it was like locked in
It
place.
was locked in place, not on the vehicle's behalf,
Oh.
on the the charger was, and so I was like, I don't know what I'm gonna do. So I called the number, and then the lady was like, "Did you unlock your doors?" And I was like, "Yes." And she's like, "Is there a button to press to release?" I said, "Yes." She said, "Did you press it?" I said, "Yes." And then she goes, "Well, I don't know what to do." And I was like,
Thanks for your help.
but I'm calling the number that I'm supposed to call. You have no troubleshooting. You have no access to, like, the station.
Yeah.
Like, you
And I mean,
can't
that's
do
a problem
anything.
on their end too.
I was like, what? This doesn't make any sense to me. So yes, you're right. But at least you can feel good doing the right thing.
Yeah.
But that is a huge one for me, because it's like, again, it's always the people that want to share that, complaint. And you've said it before. A guy that said to you, "Oh yeah, I've used this one and this charger's been broken for months." Was like, he hasn't called
Yeah.
to get it
I
fixed.
think the expectation is that, like, oh, this company should be aware that their own machines aren't working, right? But we can't always leave it to them to know
No,
these things because they have
exactly.
so many things going on.
Yeah,
But you want to know what I saw
I do.
once? I was pulling up to a charging bank.
Yes.
The guy, so there was two. Mine was fine. There was another guy beside me trying to charge an EV, and it wasn't working. Like, it was clear he was very frustrated, and so he like took the charging thing and just whipped it on the floor.
Mm,
I'm like, okay, but now it's even more broken than
yeah.
before, and it'll be even more difficult to replace. And I
Yeah.
bet he didn't call the customer service number to
No
tell them
way.
that it was broken.
You know what's interesting? You go to Europe, and a lot of the public chargers, like, they don't have, it's not like ours where it's like you pull the cable out and plug it into the car. It's like a BYOC, bring your own cable. So
Oh, I
these
kind of love
yeah,
that.
so these charge stations, it's like the stations look the same with the exception that there's no cable plugged in. Now, granted, I didn't seek out any DC fast chargers to see, so these were all, level 2. But I've never seen that before, and I was like, well, that's kind of cool, because the condition of half of these chargers is
Busted.
terrible. People
Yeah.
run them over, drop them on the
There's
ground.
like duct tape around
Oh
them.
my lord. So yeah, I thought that was I had no idea until this most recent trip.
See, I think that's kind of smart because if it's something that you own personally, you're more interested in making sure it's not broken. So you'll take
Exactly.
care of it,
Yeah.
right? I like that idea a
Yeah.
lot. That's smart.
Yeah, I thought that was pretty cool. But yeah, like, this is just what, what else I was thinking about today? And who knows, maybe things are in the works and whatever, but I've said before about Tesla and the supercharging network, and how that really was like the smartest, like, you know, Elon Musk is a nut job, but like, that was a really smart move,
Absolutely.
establishing that
Yeah.
charging network and whatever. Um, because you see it at all these shopping malls and just different commercial plazas.
Hmm.
Today, for whatever reason, it hit me, and I don't even have a Costco membership. Why doesn't Costco have a bunch of chargers?
I don't know, go to Costco, so I have no idea.
Like,
But they have a gas station.
yeah, and the Costcos I've been to anyways in the past, or the ones that are, kind of like, that I'm in the area of from time to
Hmm.
time, I've never seen them there, but I'm like, what a great, you spend, like, most people when you go to Costco,
You'll
you're
lose
there
a
for a
whole
couple,
afternoon.
yeah, so it's like, what, that to me, Costco could either do it, for free as a sort of incentive for people to have their memberships, or just like the gas station, charge whatever, a
Hmm.
subsidized price on it. But if whether it's Tesla with the supercharger network, or this other one that all these other automakers are supposedly, rolling out together as a
Hmm.
kind of conglomerate, why are they not going to a place like Costco and saying, "Hey, you've got a million stores.
Yeah.
Let's roll out a whole bank of chargers on property." And it's a great, because that's the thing that we always talk about. People, I always encourage, if you're using the public chargers, try to do it around times that are convenient for you.
Hmm.
That's a great convenience.
Oh,
And it would
definitely.
also make sense from a business perspective for Costco, because even if you're like, well, why would I sit in the car and read when I can go wander? I
You can
did
go
it
inside, get a dollar hot dog.
exactly. And go, and who knows what else you're going to come out of the, I
They'll
did it
prob I
yesterday.
cannot you cannot it's scientifically proven that you cannot go to Costco and spend less than what you had intended
There
to.
you go.
So, Costco, if I hope you're listening to this.
The thing for me is, like, yesterday when I was charging the Ioniq 5N, I didn't go, so I was like sitting in the car, I finished taking some notes, and then I went and walked through the mall, not browsing for anything, just because I was like, well, I don't want to sit in the car.
Yeah.
So I went for a walk. And it's like that same thing would surely happen in a Costco setting where it's like, oh, cool. I'm here anyways. Let's go see what, kind of
Be
deal I can
smart.
get on some Kirkland batteries or whatever, right? So
It would be so smart. It does blow my mind that they haven't done that yet.
yeah.
Okay, a question I wanted to ask you. So one time I was driving a plug-in hybrid,
Yes.
and of course I can't charge at home, so I was using a public charger.
Mhm.
Some EV drivers got pretty salty at me because I was charging the plug-in hybrid, and I didn't know how to approach that. So like, what would you think is the etiquette for plug-in hybrid drivers and
Yeah.
charging?
That is a tough one because it's like, you know, they need
And
it.
I don't need it, but I
Yes.
kind of need it.
But that's the thing, right? They don't understand like our jobs include testing these vehicles and we want to test them in there. You don't want to test a plug-in hybrid without charging it because that doesn't,
Defeats
that's
the
like
purpose.
yeah, that's like reviewing a pair of shoes, only putting on one of them and then being like, well, I was walking a little lopsided, it's like, well, of course, but it's like but that's one of those go to your situation where stop charging early, whatever. If I were because yesterday I was at the one DC fast charger and then there were two level 2 chargers next to it. Both of them were occupied, both of them by plug-in hybrids. They were both plugged in. So at least that was a good, a good kind of half the battle was won. It was like
Right.
they're doing the right thing. But yeah, surely an EV charge. But then again, I'm like, how much charge are you actually getting with a level 2 as an EV? Like, unless it's at, so again, to Jodi's point, so like our downtown office, we don't have chargers, but at our Etobicoke office, we do. Those are level 2. But if you're there for 8 hours, sure, you could get most of a full charge. Um, whereas like if you're showing up at a mall, how much charge are you getting as a EV driver anyways?
Yeah, in like 2 hours or something, it's not that much.
No. So like I don't understand why they get, but that's a real point of contention
Yeah.
between,
And I'm
EV.
still not sure what the answer is, to be honest.
No, hey, plug-in hybrid owners,
Chime in.
chime in. expert@trader.ca. Email us and let us know what you think is the right approach here, because we don't really know. We don't necessarily want to hear from EV owners because they're probably going to be like, get out of my spot,
Well, I mean, sir, I feel like some EV owners might be like, okay, good for you for trying, to dip your toe into the EV
But then,
lifestyle.
but
But
again, I
like,
think you're looking at this through some rosy.
I feel like most EV drivers are not into plug-in hybrid drivers charging in the EV spots.
But this goes back to what we've talked about before. What's going to happen, with this opening of the Tesla charging
Yeah.
network to non-Teslas? I think, Tesla drivers already feel persecuted, which is hilarious to me.
But they're also so high and mighty about their
exactly.
car
So
choice.
it's like, but now I think that's only going to get worse. They're going to be the ones who show up and get, upset when there are non-Tesla,
Yep.
owners
But
charging.
they weren't upset using the non-Tesla
Exactly.
chargers, so
Exactly.
I wonder how that will
And also,
work.
like, take up your beef with your God. Don't take it up with
That's
other
true.
EV. Like he preys on Elon Musk, so now he's made this decision. Go email him and don't go blame the guy in a Chevy Bolt or whatever the vehicle is because it's like punching down on someone.
Yeah.
But it's like they're just trying to do the same thing as you, and that's up to Tesla and Elon Musk. That's who's opened up this charging network.
I mean, and that was a business decision on Tesla's part. Like, they didn't
Exactly.
have to open it up,
No.
but they did to make
So
more
that's
money.
what I mean. So take it up with him.
Yeah.
Don't show up and start making comments and leaving notes and getting it, because I see all of this. Like I am willing to wager that this is going to happen.
I saw a really funny thing on Instagram where a Jeep Wrangler had purchased basically like a fake plug to put
Yeah.
on their car.
Yeah.
And it actually attaches to the plug, but it obviously can't charge because this particular model was not a plug-in hybrid, although they are available as plug-in hybrids. This one wasn't. And I thought that was like such a cheap, dirty trick.
Yeah, that's like that guy in the early days of the high occupancy vehicle lanes on the QEW.
Oh, that had like a dummy in
He
the
had a blow
passenger.
up doll. It's like, come on, man. Yeah, I've seen that because
The lengths you go to like skirt the rules.
I think the and I mean it would make sense from a design perspective. It's like the Jeep Wrangler 4xe, that's the plug-in hybrid. It's the only one. It's the only plug-in hybrid or EV with what looks very stuck on. It reminds me of like, the early days of mandatory backup cameras. Remember like the Nissan Micra
Oh yeah.
had that like just chunk hanging off the back
And you could see like the wire or whatever.
and I'm like, that's what this a little bit what the Wrangler 4xe's charging port looks like. And of course, but I mean, people like the things that you can find on, the Amazons of the world, like those when whoever made the discovery that Tesla's system for ensuring that you had the hands on the wheel was just a weight based thing. So you can go on still to this day. If you go on Amazon and search, you can find these little weights that you can slap on the steering wheel of your Tesla to trick the system so that you can drive more dangerously. That's crazy to me because it's like, the system, you're supposed to have your hands on the wheel. That tells you that it's not a hands-free system. And you're like, you know what I'll do? Instead of following the rules, I'll cheat the rules. In spite of reading and seeing, we just had a story on our site
I wanted to talk about
a guy who had whatever, misnomer, full self-driving.
I always use air quotes when I say that.
It's so dumb. I still can't believe that Tesla is allowed to call it that, but whatever. Headed engaged, which do I think that driver was in the wrong? Yes, because it was dark.
It was foggy out. You're not supposed to use this stuff in poor conditions.
But regardless, he had it on. But then his car, there was a train crossing with the arms down and the signals flashing, and he had to like take control of the vehicle because his car was ready to blast right into the side of that moving freight train.
Yep, and he like narrowly escaped certain death because he had so much faith in this system. But I do agree that he was partially at fault because you should not be using those systems when the conditions don't allow it.
But then why is the system not telling you?
That's the thing. That's the other thing, is that the system is clearly not as full self-driving as it says it is.
If it's so smart and can recognize it, then it should look at the conditions and be like, it's not safe to use this right now.
Yeah, absolutely.
So but anyways.
We went on another tangent.
We did. But the point is, I do foresee a future with Tesla owners getting upset.
Yep.
And that is not right. And to your point, sure, it's painting them all with the same brush, and I hate doing that. But it's like, I've seen it, you've seen it multiple times, where it's like there are Tesla chargers available, but people use the non-Tesla chargers. So then other Tesla owners, what's good for the goose, right?
Right.
It's like, dude, if you're gonna do it, then don't get upset when other people do it. And again, direct all your complaints to your Lord and Savior, Elon Musk.
It's true. Good point. Were there any other EV charging tips or etiquette that you've kind of learned throughout your experience that you wanted to share?
No, but I will say, like, my, warning or whatever, as it were, to automakers is like, think about where you're putting your charging ports.
So important.
Because, they're all over the place, and it's frustrating because some of them make sense, but other times I'm like, who came up with it? Like, okay, for North America, for example, the Kia Niro, the Hyundai Kona, a few others, having it right on the front of the vehicle where it gets encased in ice and slush, that is a terrible place.
Mm-hmm.
But conversely, putting it on the driver's side, front fender, rear quarter panel, whatever, makes sense in theory because it's clear to me that these engineers and designers are viewing it through the same lens as a gas-powered vehicle.
Yep.
But it's like, okay, man, go to LA and there are tons of these level 2 chargers curbside. Downtown Oakville, Ontario, there's one or two.
Yep.
Curbside. What the hell are you going to do?
You got to pull the cord all the way over to the other side.
And Jodi, I have had it where I've tried to do it and the cable is too short.
I've had that happen to me too, but I've also had it where it like blocks the sidewalk, so people have to do like a limbo to get underneath the cable. Like, it
I
doesn't
just
make sense.
so it's like, to me, I mean, look, the a great solution, Porsche and Audi have it on the driver's side, and then you can, I think that's how it works. And then optionally, you can get it on the passenger side. But having that dual port
Love
situation is
that.
great. Having one on the front, aside from wintertime, is good in those scenarios, because then you can pull into a parking spot at a conventional, setup.
Mhm.
But curbside, you won't have any problems in your garage, whatever. But I am still a fan of, think like Tesla has it right. Kia, has it kind of right with the EV6. I think the Ionic 5, I believe it's on the passenger side rear. Yeah, it is. So it's like, that makes sense, because if it's in your garage, you back in. If it's a public charger where they're like, the spots run along a curb
Mhm.
and the charger's there, you back in, but then curbside, you can plug in. But it's like, these automakers need to think this through and don't. This has been a huge problem, right? We talk about this with a lot of things with EVs. They are not the same as gas-powered vehicles, so you need to stop thinking about them that way. Well, it's the same thing with automakers. Then stop designing the systems
It's
to
true.
mirror the vehicles that they are replacing, because they are different. They function differently. They serve slightly
Yeah.
different
They should
purposes.
really just like clean sheet everything, like just from
Yes,
scratch. Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah.
Very cool. Before our Ask an Expert segment, here's a message from your friends at AutoTrader. Can't find a car at your ideal price point? AutoTrader is the answer. Car prices are dropping across Canada, and AutoTrader has got you covered with hundreds of thousands of cars for you to choose from. Use our price badges to find a great deal at a great price today. Visit AutoTrader for more. Today's Ask an Expert comes from Mike.
What up, Mike?
Hello again, experts. We've recently wrapped up Earth Day, and there's been a lot of talk about EVs and electric transportation, but we rarely hear about the other piece of the puzzle, tires. I'm wondering what your recommendations or preferences are to get rid of your old tires. Let's say a set of 4 with a couple of nails in all of them. Do you look for a recycling depot? Do you sell them for nearly nothing for someone to repair? Or do you feel confident enough to get them patched and hope they last another couple seasons? Love to hear your thoughts. Again, appreciate the knowledge that you've been sharing through the show. That's so kind of you. Thank you so
Thanks,
much for
Mike.
your question, Mike.
This is like, it's a very thoughtful and interesting topic, because
I think a lot of other people are wondering the same thing.
yeah, and it's, so me personally, now, okay, we also need to preface this a little bit, I think, with, in Ontario, we don't do the recycling depot thing directly. Like, you can, go to a scrap, to a what do you call those places? Landfills,
Right.
that do that. But in Ontario, you pay like a tire recycling fee, every time you buy a new set of tires. So that includes with a new vehicle. So you can go to Canadian Tire and dispose of your tires there, and that's part of what the fee covers.
Yeah.
Um,
So when I got new tires, I got them switched at my Volkswagen dealership, and they took my old tires free of charge for me
exactly.
because of that exact same thing.
Exactly. So I'm
Um,
not sure how it works. I mean, I'm sure in that scenario in Manitoba it would be the same, but I know jurisdictionally it varies a little bit. So we can't necessarily give uniform advice on, oh, just, like, let them take them. But yes, I now, okay, the patching the tires thing is an interesting topic as well, because of okay, for those of you who don't know, you can get a tire repaired, as long as the puncture is on the tread, like basically the flat bottom side of the tire. If it is in the sidewall, you cannot repair that tire. And I don't care if you Google it and some guy says, "Oh yeah, like I'll repair sidewalls for $50." Sidewalls are not repairable, because you got to think, tires are part of your suspension, okay? So even though you won't necessarily be able to see it unless you're on the sidewalk and you see somebody like smoke a pothole, but tires flex, almost imperceptibly when you hit any little impact. Because it's rubber and it's filled with air, there is compression that happens. If you try to patch or plug the side of a tire, that patch or plug is going to blow apart the first time that tire compresses a little bit. So you cannot patch the sidewall. You can patch, the tread. in certain, as long as it's not too far gone and whatever. It's interesting because tire wear, especially with all-wheel drive, becomes a sort of interesting topic that you can't replace just one tire if the other ones are worn beyond a certain amount, because then it's uneven. And even though it seems imperceptible to you, the
Hmm.
size difference can cause damage to the driveline. Yes, I would say I would feel comfortable plugging a tire. I've done it before. I've had it done. Um, but in the instance where you can't do that, would I sell them or give them to somebody who is interested? I guess, but I mean, I would think of alternatives. As silly as it sounds, you can use them
It's a
for
planter.
exactly.
I think I think upcycling them,
Yeah,
recycling them, reusing them is probably one of the better things you can do.
yeah,
Even if you want to post it on Facebook, like, "Hey, free set of tires for recycling,"
yeah.
someone will come get it,
Totally,
right?
totally.
Growing up, my dad, we had a huge hill in our backyard that we used for tobogganing.
Yeah,
My dad put used tires around the trees so we wouldn't get
there you go.
smoked by them.
Yeah,
So there are plenty of different
I like that
uses.
your like young Jodi lie was like, "Oh, I don't want to get smoked by a tree." Not, "I'm gonna smoke a tree." That the tree is gonna jump out at you and be like,
Boo!
"Watch where you're going," you know?
I mean, but Papa I
But
knew, right?
he
Like,
did.
there's a lot of different uses,
But you could do like, I mean,
but there's so many things you can do with old tires these
tire
days.
swings.
Tire swings, but also like certain Canadian tires in Ontario. This doesn't really apply outside of Ontario, but they like grind them up and use them in to build parks. They have an initiative called Play Finds a Way, which is their charity,
Yeah.
and they grind them up into their parks, and
You
it's
know
like a
what's
great material.
you know what's interesting? I've talked about this with friends, and look, I'm obviously not, a researcher. I've not. This is very just. I'm just throwing it out there, but I know like so artificial turf fields, so football and soccer fields, uh, that's one of the uses for old tires is they get ground up and they create these little rubber pellets, and that's what is simulates soil that you would have in
Cool.
a natural field, but it also is what supposed to help prevent injuries because it's like it cushions your
Like a little
impact and whatever.
softer.
But man, I've started to like hear some whispers of the dangers of like inhaling that or ingesting that
Oh,
rubber, because you got to think if you're a soccer player, you're sliding, even just running, and it's all getting kicked up into the atmosphere,
it's
and
been
it's
like
even
baking
the
in the
part,
sun.
yeah, like even the because that like off gassing tires, that's a big problem, right?
Hmm.
Now this is when we're talking about new used tires, whatever. If you see like a storage canister with tires, they'll often have one of those vents that spins to off gas. Mark, who works at a bike company, they had a container filled with tires, and he said like in the summer heat, the first time they opened that, it was like overwhelming that
Oh,
off gassing from because you got to think these are petroleum based
that's
products.
right.
So I'm looking at that and going, oh man, I could see how that it's not quite the same, but when those tires are ground up, you can see the rubber pellets, but what you're not seeing is all this fine grit and like rubber, particulate that I'm thinking like these athletes are unwittingly inhaling this
Right.
stuff. And I'm like, oh man, this could be like danger
I'd
down the
be
road.
interested to see if they're treated in some way that prevents that. I have no
Totally. That's
idea.
why I'm saying I'm not a researcher. It just reminded me talking about,
Yeah.
what can be done with old
There's
tires.
so many uses though. I think I had a pair of shoes once where they used recycled tires to make the sole.
Oh, that's kind of
It
cool.
was really cool. Yeah, so there's lots of different things you can do. That's a great question though. Thank you, Mike. We have another one here from G Raposo from Ajax.
What up, G?
Hi, Jodi and Dan. I thought you might like this BMW cartoon that showed up on Facebook today. I love your podcast, and I've listened to every single episode. Thank you so
Wow, thank
much.
you.
Okay, so for those of you who are listening, we're gonna put this up on our YouTube. It says there's some people in a car dealership. It's a BMW dealership, and it says the dealer is saying, "Congratulations on your purchase. Before I can give you the keys, you have to watch our mandatory instructional video." And then there's a TV on the side that says, "BMW presents Drive Like a."
Oh, that's good stuff.
That's really funny.
Yeah.
I also feel like this could apply to Tesla drivers, but I'm
Yes.
just, that's another story.
Thanks for this. I've honestly, I mean, I've heard and made a number of jokes like in a similar vein to this, but I've never seen this cartoon, and it's pretty hilarious.
It's pretty funny. This one was a good one.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for sending that to us. If any of you would like to send us funny memes, or if you have any questions that you would like to ask Dan or I, you could email us at expert@trader.ca. But that wraps up this episode. Thank you so much for tuning in. Drive safe, and we'll see you next time.
Bye, guys.